So this is a new moon forecast, and as you see, it's going to happen at 9:58 of Virgo here at the very edge of Uttara Phalguni. You see, this is Krishna Amavasya. Jesus, this thing keeps popping up. So this is on September 27th at 4:08 a.m. Now watch this change 1 minute later. Shukla Pratipad, which is the first lunar day, 9:59 in Uttara Phalguni. So the new moon actually happens in Uttara Phalguni, the last second of celestial arc. You watch, the next minute it's going to go to Hasta right here. Then the moon goes to Hasta at 10. So it's literally that close to Hasta Nakshatra, but not quite there. Of course, this is based on the sidereal zodiac that uses the Lahiri Ayanamsha, so it's all very close, but I'm going to be saying this is Uttara Phalguni for the Nakshatra rather than Hasta, even though it's literally 2 minutes from Hasta. Shukla Pratipada happens at 9:59 Uttara Phalguni, which is the first lunar day, so that means that that's when the sun moon come together at actually 9:58 Uttara Phalguni. So, what does all that mean? So, we have this stellium in Virgo. Now, of course, it's not uncommon to have a stellium of planets. Stellium means a group of planets when we have the new moon, because it's the sun and moon coming together, and usually, for instance, Mercury and Venus are not that far away from the sun, so it's not unusual for us to have Mercury and Venus join the sun as well. You don't often have both, though, when we have the new moon, but having Saturn there is certainly a little different. So we have this new moon cycle, which has also joined Saturn. The other thing to note is that Venus is debilitated, Mercury is exalted, so there's a lot of stuff going on with dignities here. And the dignity just shows how the planet operates in that environment. So with this debilitated Venus joins Saturn right now anyway, we're being very practical and rational in our assessments of romantic relationships. You could say that that's a benefit of having Venus debilitated. Certainly, often we're very unrealistic about romantic relationships. Once our desires become active, then we want what we want, and we compromise often too much in order to get what we want, because we want to feel that good stuff. So we compromise things that maybe are really important to us because we want to feel the connection. But then after a while, that starts to drain our energy, starts to zap our self-respect, rather than replenish us. The things that we look to allow us to enjoy life starts to be a drain of our energy. So this is big Venus issues. So when Venus goes into Virgo, we're much more rational about those things. We're much less kind of, just sort of under this idea that, I'm just going to, love everything and all that, which is kind of Venus in Pisces. So Venus in Virgo, it's much more rational and practical, but not as turned on, you might say, for sure. Now, then you bring Saturn into the mix, which is also very much about being rational and practical. And these things can be really big in our mind, and especially right now, since Venus and Saturn are very close to each other. So you see this this new moon is happening with Venus and Saturn within a couple degrees of each other, less than 3 degrees. So not only are we in that kind of practical, rational, not so turned on Venus mode, we actually might be turned on sexually, but we're not doing a lot about it. We're kind of realizing that, that would really take a lot of effort. That would really take a lot of hard work. Is that really worth it? This is kind of how it feels, because we're just looking at it in that way. So it doesn't mean that we're not turned on, like we're not feeling sexual. In fact, we might be feeling very sexual, or might be feeling very sensual, but we're realizing how it's a drain on our energy, and we're not so excited about it. So Venus-Saturn being so close is really showing this quality, because Saturn tends to show us the limitation of things also. So it's showing our limited happiness, it's showing the limits of our desires, it's showing the waste of energy, and it's also showing the, perhaps you might say, humiliation and the mistakes that we make when we act from the more um, stimulated Venus point of view, and how we actually don't treat others with as much respect as we could, even though we tell ourselves, "Oh, nobody respects me. I try so hard, and and all I get back is blah blah." We say this stuff to ourselves, and we burden our partners with this stuff too. But really, the truth is, everything we do is for ourselves on some level. We can still selflessly love people, but around the Venus thing, it really starts with us and our desires. The reason we're so giving, and the reason we're so loving, and the reason we compromise so much is because of what we get back as a result. Because that's the easiest way to our short-term happiness in the moment, is to compromise and go along so that we can feel that Venus stuff. Because as soon as we say, no, this is really not what I want, then there's a possibility that we're not going to get that pleasure and joy in the moment. So the consequences of this whole thing can be felt really strongly now with Saturn being so close to Venus, because Saturn is really about consequences. Saturn brings pressure to shatter the illusion around things. So Venus getting really close to Saturn, we can really rationally assess how we're doing along this, quality of selling our integrity down the toilet in order to have a connection, even if the connection is not honoring to ourselves or to the other person. So this is a general feature. Now, having said all that, one of the things that makes it so that this is something not so debasing and something where we can really learn from it is because Mercury is exalted. And this is what Nichabanga means. Sometimes it's just indiscriminately applied where it's like, well, it's debilitated, but Mercury's there, so it's not that bad. So it's bad, but not that bad, and it's just left in this kind of vague netherworld that doesn't really explain it. So the process that I talked about is happening, that's there, but because Mercury is also there and Mercury is exalted, it's bringing wisdom into that thing. Every kind of Nichabanga is different. You have to see what the Nichabanga is, what the modification of the debility is. And in this case, it's with its ruler. So its ruler there is always going to be probably the most powerful Nichabanga, in the sense that if the ruler is there, especially it's the exalted ruler, anytime it's with its ruler, it's going to bring Nichabanga. Like anytime you have a debilitated planet and the ruler is there, it's going to give that modification. But in this case, it's not just that the ruler is there, the ruler is exalted. So it's very powerful to show and reveal the deeper truth behind this, and what that means is that we need to be a little bit easier on ourselves, on our partners, be a little more lighthearted and flexible, and realize we make mistakes, not turn into this big, heavy, terrible problem, not blame the other person so much and just find fault with them, which is the problem with debilitated Venus, because it's in Virgo, and it's very easy for us to find the fault with all the other people, what they did to us, instead of realizing, you know what, that's kind of stupid. I did it myself. I did these things because I wanted the connection. I compromised because of what I got back. And that's just intelligence. And that's what Mercury is. He's a planet of intelligence, where we step out of all of our drama, all of our charge, and just look at things sensibly and go, well, okay, yeah, that's true. That is me. I did kind of do that. And yeah, that's right. And that's the greatness of Mercury, and also the greatness of Saturn, because Saturn is also a planet that is what's called neutral. The gender of planets is really important, and both Mercury and Saturn are both neutral. The other planets have a gender charge. Moon and Venus are two feminine planets. Mars, Sun, and Jupiter are masculine planets, and they're charged. They have a bias toward either self-will, independence, and assertion, which are the masculine planets, or compromise, connection, feeling good, which are the feminine planets. Mercury and Saturn don't have those biases. And it's really important quality of the planet, because there's part of you that's actually very objective. And this is what Mercury and Saturn are about. Part of you, you're just very cold and rational. No matter how much charge you might have around certain things about your independence or your need to connect, on some level, like on a very survival level, which is Saturn, you'll get rid of anything that threatens your survival. You will look at it rationally and go, wait a minute, this is just not right. I need to get out of this. If it's that, once it gets to a certain point, you can be very cold and rational about getting out of something. And that's the nature of Saturn, no matter how you feel about it one way or the other. Mercury is neutral in another way. Mercury's neutral in seeing how, in actually being very flexible, and rather than taking it so seriously, which is the nature of Saturn, Mercury takes it completely opposite. It's like, this isn't that serious. That seriousness is the problem. That I'm so like hooked into this like charge and all these desires around either my independence or my desires and happiness in the moment that I can't see straight, and that's the problem. I need to be more flexible. I need to be more intelligent about this, and I need to, step out of my drama. So Mercury's bringing a lot of that into this whole mix here. So these are big themes that are going on right now, and we're also seeing it, excuse me, in our world with a lot of with the willingness to actually take action in certain things around the world. We're having a lot of things happen here in the U.S. around protests. They're starting to become more vocal. Since we have this Jupiter in Aries, this is a big context where I've been talking about protests and stuff since Jupiter moved into Aries in the spring. The Arab Spring. It started in the U.S. too. Now it's getting more and more vocal. But we're seeing a lot of it now because we're tired of being polite. We're tired of just believing that things are going to work out. Like I said, all this stuff with Venus. And we're organized, we're organizing, and we're, you might say taking to the streets or taking our message public. And, and willing to serve that higher cause and serve that thing that's bigger than just our happiness in the moment, which is, a lot of the Sun-Saturn themes also. The other thing that's happening with this new moon is, Saturn is really prominent. Saturn is about to go into Libra. In a month and a half, Saturn will go into Libra for the next couple years, for the most part. And both the Sun and Saturn are planets of duty, responsibility, hard work, and, they both are about taking big actions because, the Sun is our big, powerful actions because of all the good that we can do and the need to be expressing our authentic power. This is what the Sun is. It's the true power. And Saturn gives a lot of responsibility so that we can correct things that have been so that we can correct all of these mistakes, like the mistakes I said about Venus and the, how we're doing with compromising and stuff, but also larger themes in our life. Saturn is where we remember our mistakes. That's why we also maybe tend to feel guilt, tend to feel, stress and fear about repeating those mistakes. But it's also where, as I said, we're willing to be practical and rational and make a commitment to those things that we know need to be done. Regardless of how we feel about it in the moment, this is another big thing with these cruel planets. Mars, Saturn, and the Sun are what are called cruel planets, and they give us the capacity to act with cruelty. Cruelty means harshness, to do what we know is right, whether it feels good in the moment or not. So there's a lot of juxtapositioning of these energies right now, because we have the Sun and Saturn, which are two cruel planets. We have the Moon and Venus and Mercury, which are three gentle planets. Mercury is said to be neutral as gender, but as a quality of a planet, he's a Somya Graha, which means a gentle planet. So Mercury, Moon, and Venus are all three gentle planets. They're not cruel. And some might say, well, but Mercury's neutral. He's neutral as gender, just like Saturn is neutral gender. But as far as his quality, Mercury is a Somya Graha. And I know it says that he gives according to his disposition, but that means that if he's joined gentle planets, he'll act in a gentle way. If he's joined cruel planets, then he'll take on the cruel nature of the gentle planet. But this is just like a person who is really nice and gentle. If they get around cruel people, they'll help the cruel people. Because Mercury is so helpful, he even helps planets that are cruel. Mercury is the most helpful planet of all, because he's adaptable to anything that's in his environment. This is why, in general, to have Mercury powerful in the natal chart is one of the best for living a life of success and things like that, because he allows us to adapt to what happens in real time. And he facilitates the intelligence and the adaptability and the efficiency and the skills of everything that he is around. So if you look and see, Mercury moved into Virgo like 9 days ago. And this is exactly when all of the protesters organized in New York and started the Occupy Wall Street thing, using technology and all of that. So it was a movement, and these things were ideas, but when Mercury became exalted and joined all these places of all these planets of power, especially Sun, Saturn, and Venus, which were already there. Actually, Mercury joined there a little bit later. I'm sorry, it was into last week. Actually, once the Sun joined, that's really when they started to mobilize. But Mercury joined in the middle of last week. So I'm wrong, but the movement is gathering steam and will continue to because Mercury is there bringing skill and bringing increased communication and things like that. So these are all big themes for the upcoming month. And wherever Virgo falls in your chart will be a big area of growth for you. And so I encourage you to find out what that would be like. You can actually get a free forecast about 2012 and the upcoming changes. Also get a free 2 weeks to my membership site and one of my DVD home study courses if you wanted to find out how this will influence your life in the next 30 days as well as we start the next Virgo cycle. And so now I'll do the recording for my gold members, which gives them the forecast for their individual sign.